canon Sonic the Hedgehog takes the pronouns of the enemies that he fights.
87.
My pronouns are Sonic 96, the 96, Hedgehog 472.
Have you guys heard of this like cool old indie game called The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time
Whoa.
by independent game studio Nintendo?
Wow. Is it about Zelda?
No. Welcome to the podcast.
I'm Alina.
I'm Cole.
I am slightly more awake than last time.
Fucking better be.
And welcome to our humble home in the void.
To our humble big top with a single desk inside.
We do have one giant desk that just goes.
Yeah, into infinity. It goes in both directions.
As far as it needs to. It goes as far as it needs to. Don't pay any attention.
The desk has no beginning. It has no end.
What we're looking at is just infinite wood all the way into the horizon.
This is but a branch of Yggdrasil.
The desk is actually a circle, and you are sitting on the other side of it, audience.
Yeah.
Today's.
Why do we have a round table for this fucking podcast?
I don't know.
No.
Why don't we? Don't you like things that are shaped like donuts?
I do like donuts.
I guess.
Today's episode is about The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Because if Alina gets to talk about her video game obsession, I get to talk about mine.
I don't have one. That's a lie. I do. It will remain a secret until that episode comes.
Yes. And I'm having.
Because I can't think of it off the top of my head.
And I'm having an asthma problem anyway, so I can't talk that much.
Specifically, thesis statement of the video is that I don't think that The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time actually shifted the Zelda formula that much. I think all of the shifts were introduced in A Link to the Past, and they just continued forwards. And the reason for this is just that's kind of just how development works.
Scandalous opinion.
Hold on. Is this going to be that fucking Ego Raptor video?
No, the Ego Raptor video is not something I actually remember the full text of.
That's the only reason it's not!
No, that's not the only reason it's not. I only know... the only thing I remember from that video is that Aaron doesn't like Ocarina of Time, or at least didn't then. I don't know if his opinions changed in the past, like, fucking 10 years.
No. I haven't been paying attention to Game Grumps.
Me neither.
I watch the 10-minute Power Hour sometimes. Emphasis on sometimes.
So, yeah, so, a lot of it when I was a teenager, which I'm no longer, and I haven't in years.
Yeah.
But no, this shouldn't just be the Ego Raptor video, because, and if it is, well, whoops.
It's technically not a video.
It'll be
it's
a
a
full
podcast.
Ego Raptor video, but for like 2 hours instead of 20 minutes.
If I remember correctly, his stance was that Ocarina wasn't the shining gem that everyone thinks it is, which isn't my opinion. I still think Ocarina is very, very good. I just don't think it is the one that shifted the entire Zelda formula for decades.
I wouldn't know.
So we're gonna be going over some A Link to the Past stuff, but also a lot of Ocarina stuff, and because I can't stay away from it like a moth to a flame, the Zelda timeline, because that's a nightmare.
Oh boy.
Yeah, for those of you who may not be in the know, somehow, The Legend of Zelda is a rather popular franchise made by, of course, the smallest of independent studios, Nintendo. The in reality one of the largest gaming companies in the world, Nintendo. And it is has a lot of games in it. I know for a fact that if you are relatively new to the series, you probably came in with Breath of the Wild. Hey, that's fine. I have no bars against you. I also
Unlike others.
maybe, unlike some others, listen, all right. When a new thing comes out and it introduces a fuckload of people into an established fandom, what happens is the status quo shifts irreparably. And that's exactly what happened when Breath of the Wild came out. And like, I'm glad more people are into Zelda now than they were before it. Also, I have some foibles about the way that a lot of them seem to interpret things, but that's for later.
That's a video for another time. We'll just do that about all fandoms.
So this stuff changes as fandoms go on anyway, and just because it's weird for me to think that I'm possibly a Zelda old head, if only for the sense that I entered Zelda fandom when I was 7. So I've been in it for most of my life.
Every day we get closer and closer to Cole revealing their age.
That'll be the Skyward Sword video. Because it's inextricably tied to the memories of my youth. My second hot take is that I think Skyward Sword was good, actually. Or at the very least, not as bad. I don't think it's as bad as people make it out to be.
We are the most controversial YouTubers in existence.
We fucking better not be. I would hope not. Excuse me.
What do you mean? We made a video on Microsoft's Golden Child, and then immediately after followed it up with Nintendo's Golden Child. We're video game sluts.
I think Nintendo's Golden Goose is actually Mario still, but it's Mario and Pokemon, which are still more popular than Zelda is, I think.
Pokemon would make sense. Mario is probably more well known, but
Mario's like the mascot.
Well, that's what popularity is.
But in terms of people who actually play Mario games, I haven't heard of any.
I've played.
They're not real.
I've played a Mario Kart
or
two. Yep. Shut the fuck up! You don't know what I'm playing.
I mean, in all fairness, Peter, you don't own a Nintendo Switch.
No, I don't.
So you wouldn't be keeping up to date with it anyway. And Alina, you do have one, but you mostly play other stuff on your computer and your Xbox.
Like Halo and Halo.
Yeah, I don't play. I don't really play Halo on the computer.
Just Halo.
Just Halo. I play nothing else. You're absolutely right.
I play nothing else but Legend of Zelda over and over again.
Clearly, if you're obsessed with a game, you can't play any other game.
Them's the rules.
Them's the rules. Those are the breaks, kiddo.
Them's the breaks, pal.
This is a funny thing, because actually I've replayed Ocarina of Time for the 5th time recently. Recently as in last August. Because Epi was playing Ocarina of Time. Badly, and I had to prove that because he was maybe halfway through the game,
Mhm.
and I decided that I can absolutely like 100% this game a fifth time faster before you can finish it. And I did.
Wow.
It took me. The save file is on. I was playing the remake on the 3DS, which is my 3DS is over there. I don't want to go get it, but it took me not too long. As we were on vacation, so we were also doing other things throughout the day besides just playing video game. Like going to the bagel shop.
Oh my god, bagels! I like bagels. And donuts.
I love bagels. Thing with hole in center? Pastry with hole in center?
Good.
Apparently, yeah.
Objectively. Cannot be refuted.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're just right.
So like that is my level of with Ocarina at least, that is my absolute my level of infatuation with it is I've 100%ed the game on the 3DS 3 different times technically. The first 2 times I played it I didn't manage to get everything. So I technically lied when I said I've done it 5 times right then, but hey, that happens.
So you've played it 5 times.
I've beaten the game
it
5
3
times. Yeah. And I've also I got through most of it once on the N64 version, but I wasn't having a good time on that one. Because God, when you're used to the controls on the 3DS version, it's just really fucking wonky. I've played plenty of N64 and GameCube games with like no real difficulty because I just intuit them. I'm an epic gamer like that. But the
Epic game.
and also like I do also think that like if you're already familiar with modern controls, those are kind of still like pretty intuitive, especially when it's Nintendo because their control schemes technically
Change
don't
every
actually
fucking
shift
console.
that much. Yeah, they do change every console, but like when you're familiar with one of them, it's actually not that hard to pick up the next one.
I mean, yeah, they have the same button layouts for the most part. We're not talking about the Wii.
Yeah, unless it's the Wii or the GameCube.
Yeah.
I feel like the
But
Wii
the
is the
controllers-
funkier of those.
Or the NES.
Controllers shift drastically every fucking time.
The NES only had A and B, and then the SNES had, ABXY. That's when we got that. And then the GameCube also had ABXY, but in a different formation. And then the Wii controller is the
Wii
Wii.
controller, yeah.
But then it stayed ABXY on there. When they got to the DS. GameCubes similarly also only had A and B.
Boy, I sure have a lot of Xboxes. I still have a lot of Xbox.
Yeah, I played Ocarina a lot. I've played A Link to the Past less. My memory's a little bit scrappy in regards to it. But still, the impression is still largely there. Which is why, like, I think that... Okay, so here's the thing. This is the ultimate crux of my take here, which is that ultimately Ocarina is mostly an adaptation of A Link to the Past, but put into 3D. I think for Ocarina they were focusing really hard on the 3D technology, but there's still like plenty of things that Ocarina introduced that then stayed in the series going forwards. Like we cannot
like the
forget
chest opening animation.
Yeah, that fucking bling ass chest opening animation.
What?
The you know it.
Oh! I hate my intrusive thoughts sometimes. I thought you meant like a chest, like a person's chest bursting open.
No, chest burster is alien.
That bling ass chest opening sequence, and I'm over here like,
Imagining someone's chest viscerally exploding. Yeah,
Yo, that
no,
chest
it's not
burst
Bling,
was
bling.
fucking baller.
with bling, that chest bursting, wearing like 13 gold rings.
13
Big,
gold
big gold
rings, has
chain.
a gold chain, top hat,
One of its teeth are gold.
monocle.
One of its teeth are gold. Monocle.
Golden monocle, specifically.
The swanky chest opening animation, the Gerudo were introduced in Ocarina. They were not in A Link to the Past. That is something entirely from Ocarina. When I say I think A Link to the Past is to credit for like the big formula changes, I mean just the formula changes. The way that the dungeons work, the way that you go to them, the order in which you tend to go through them. That is A Link to the Past. And then Ocarina did absolutely still introduce several things to the series that stayed continuing forwards. It's the first time we saw fucking Ganon Fork. Love that man. Oh, he's incredible.
The guy that recently got semi-rehydrated.
Yeah. He did
Nice.
not get as rehydrated as the fan artists wanted, but
That is why I said semi-rehydrated. I do remember you telling me about that and me being over here like, man, I sure do have a lot of Xboxes.
yeah. I remember as Tears of the Kingdom content was getting like drip fed to us, I was fucking texting people all the time of like, okay, so this is what I think is gonna happen, alright? Now this was a stretch, but I really want this to be the case. Still,
I don't know if my memory's awful or if you didn't actually send me any of that.
that was unfortunately during the time where you were kind of dead. So
Fair enough. I actually have no memories of that time period.
exactly. That was during.
Like, I don't even remember that period existing until yesterday because Aiden brought it up.
He's like, man, remember that time when you were dead for a bit? No, I actually did. Flashback.
I didn't even get flashbacks. I still have no idea what fucking time period that was.
At some point in your life.
I guess
something happened.
For posterity, I was really hoping that the Twilight from Twilight Princess would be involved in Tears of the Kingdom, and they weren't, and I'm sad about that. I miss Midna.
As do a lot of people hornier than you.
I miss her because she was like one of the few companions that actually got character development. This is the other thing that Ocarina introduced. Is Link having a little travel buddy that's like does stuff for him from time to time. People might not have liked Navi at all, but like she still was the one that started that, and people since have liked the other companions way fucking more.
Hey, listen. Hey.
I don't know if they changed it on the 3DS or what, but her hey listens did not come up that frequently and were not that annoying. I think people were just like 10 years old playing it and didn't quite know what to do. And so just got annoyed at the thing that's supposed to provide hints, but some of those hints fucking suck.
Yeah. I could see that.
Because I do know they changed some of the hints in the 3DS version. I'm pretty sure that's the case. Which resulted in me being a lot less lost when I played it for the first time when I was 10 years old on the 3DS version.
It's like how they had to add arrows to the library in Halo Combat Evolved, because in the original it's got lost.
Yeah. Lost in the library.
Yes.
Just like IKEA.
Oh no.
Like the main thing that I think I'm trying to drive at here is that, excuse me, technically speaking, if I want to be technical about it, A Link to the Past is the Zelda game that brought in like most of the mechanics going forwards for the rest of the entire game. Um, Most of the items in Ocarina of Time are just like 3D recreations of the items in A Link to the Past. Most of the dungeons are kind of similar, not like aesthetically similar necessarily, but like the order in which you go to them, the process of how that works. You have 3 dungeons in like the big opening area of the game, and then you have 7 other dungeons in this kind of like warped otherworld situation. In A Link to the Past, you have 7 dungeons that you can access by traversing the Dark World, which you gain more access to after the first 3 dungeons. You kind of slip in and out of it sometimes in between there, but you can traverse the Dark World easier after the first 3 dungeons. Um, and then in Ocarina of Time, it's even more streamlined, where you do the first 3 dungeons, and then you get time traveled to the dark evil future where Ganondorf is one. And yes, I do call him Ganondorf. I think it's funny. I'm not gonna stop. He's the Fork Man. He wields a trident that makes him the Fork guy to me. Laugh!
Ha!
Thank you.
Ha ha ha. Ha.
I know you can't laugh that much, but that was mostly a Peter.
And I said no.
Ha.
Don't, Alina, don't kill yourself right now. You're right with your ass
Nope, I'm
moving.
going. I'm gonna go. I'm dying now. Nope.
But you have to upload the podcast episode. People aren't gonna see the funny.
No,
Man.
people will find the unedited version after the apocalypse happens on Alina's somehow still powered computer.
It's powered
Powered
by
and
spite.
Yeah, powered and fully intact.
Listen,
Or they have to like take out the hard drive to get something for some reason. I don't know what would be stored on your computer that
all
would be
of
useful
my
in an
art,
apocalypse.
all of my art, Cole. It's
They
all
gotta get,
here.
they gotta get your art for like an art gallery, right? They're
Yeah.
doing an art expo in the far-flung apocalypse.
The Before Times Art Expo. They're going through a bunch of hard drives to find art.
God, that would actually make such a good like quest in a post-apocalypse game.
Would that like it'd be fun. It'd just be a fun little quest you could do. Like go get these hard drives. I want to do an art expo.
Like specifically from the before times.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then fucking the plot twist of the quest is that it's all NFTs. You have to make a moral
It's-
decision to
No!
destroy all of them.
Nah!
Yes! Destroy them all!
Well, yes, I was saying no more to the fact that they're all NFTs and they're not like actual.
Yeah, me
art.
too, but then Peter added on the fact that you then can make the moral decision to destroy them all, and that's...
I put "moral" in heavy quotation marks, by the way.
That is the moral decision, to destroy all the NFTs.
Yeah. The only correct decision is to destroy all the NFTs. The quote-unquote morality is, there's like an actual ethical quandary by the developers, despite the fact that fucking nobody's going to save them.
I don't know. If you can have people misunderstand the point of Fallout so severely, I think some people would save them, and then be confused why the game punishes them for it. Like, oh, why do you get this like much better quest reward for destroying the NFTs?
Don't
It's
understand.
like, I don't know, man.
Oh.
Maybe the game is making like a point or something.
That can't
And
be it.
aside, because I fully believe that games are art. I don't think that's a debate to be had anymore. In the past several decades have really just proven that over and over again. But like, there's a lot of people in the world who will absolutely think that games are art, but then like the moment that you bring up the fact that like, yeah, you know, art often has like a meaning or a point or like a purpose, they're like, no, I just like killing. Just let me shoot the bad guy. It's like, well, who do you think the bad guy is? The guy in the way of my gun.
The guy in the way. So all the Marines in Halo by that logic.
Are they between the bullet and your gun?
Yeah. Yeah, usually actually. They really like to run it out in
Well?
front of your line of fire, and it's just like, man, I want to shoot you so bad. Get out of the way.
The meaning of Halo is team. Ignore the plot.
Ignore the plot. I can't.
There's a bunch of stuff that is in A Link to the Past that then is also in Ocarina of Time. And I'm not the point I'm saying. I'm not trying to say like, oh, A Link to the Past did it better, or oh, Ocarina of Time did it better. I'm just saying like that is the actual origin of that instead of Ocarina. Because even like I forget this all the time, but the hookshot is in A Link to the Past as well. And that's the thing that you mostly end up using for traversal once you get to the future timeline in Ocarina of Time. And like, yeah, the hookshot works much better in a 3D space. Elena, do you know what the hookshot is?
Is it like the grapple hook from Halo Infinite?
Yes, exactly.
Then yes, I know.
Except you can only use it on specific things or anything made of wood.
Ah, okay. Like, yeah,
So it's
that makes sense.
An inferior grappling hook, but it is still a grappling hook.
If I can't climb up a mountain with it, I don't want it.
So like it has a bunch of hookshot puzzles in it. There's a bunch. There's so many things that originate in here. This is where the fucking Master Sword came from. Is A Link to the Past. It starts there. That's where like the classic. Because like technically there was like a Master Sword in the first and second game, but not. It's given the importance that it has in the rest of the series in A Link to the Past, and it's in its classic like pedestal, a single shaft of light from the sky shining down on it in the middle of the fucking woods. Specifically the Lost Woods, and this is where the Lost Woods come from too. I was like, there's a bunch of things that begin in A Link to the Past and then get carried forwards into Ocarina and then into the rest of the series, including and it's all like structure stuff for the most part. It's like the way that the game is built, the way the series continues up until Breath of the Wild, where the formula changes again, begins in A Link to the Past by pure technicality. Can you do sequence breaking in A Link to the Past? Yes. It's pretty difficult though. And the thing with A Link to the Past as well, though, I will say, is that like it has much more exploration angle in it than Ocarina of Time does. Ocarina of Time is very much you go point A to point B over and over again. That is where the more of the linear stuff came in that held for years and years. That does originate in Ocarina for the most part, but the step to it was in A Link to the Past, and some would even argue that like technically the first Zelda game was kinda linear, because yes, you could go and do like one of the dungeons before you do one of the other dungeons, but like you shouldn't do that, but you can. That is the same design philosophy that they end up using for Breath of the Wild, where it's like, yes, you can go right to the final boss out the gate. Maybe you shouldn't, though.
If you're a coward, yeah.
Yeah. Hi, have we met before?
No, this is our first time meeting.
Damn, hi. I've been sat at this table for a while now.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Wild, man.
Yeah,
I think it's Wild Table.
Well,
Well,
clearly the
part of
table
it.
spawned me.
Paul has always been part of the table.
Part of the ship, part of the crew, after all.
Anyway, back to Ocarina of Time. Link to the Past.
I did think about something really quickly. Where was I? Yeah, so like in A Link to the Past, you do have to like explore around, especially if you want to get everything. The area is much less linear, just in general, than Ocarina ends up being, because Ocarina does end up being pretty linear, and there's actually not that much to explore, despite technically sorta being an open world. Because the thing
It's
is,
open world in the same way that Super Mario 64 is an open world.
yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Because it's the fucking N64 originally. You can't actually fit much there. And it's like
Actually, you can fit 64.
Good podcast, everyone. See you next week when we do, I don't know, the Soma episode or something.
it's my best bit. It's my best joke.
I've been watching the OBS recording this whole time, and I'm just saying 64, and then I just see your character disappear. And I'm like, oh.
I didn't know that's what happened.
Yeah.
If you leave the call.
Yeah, if you leave the call, it doesn't register you as in the call anymore. So the program I have for OBS, where we have our little characters jumping around here, you just leave. You just cease to exist.
That's amazing.
Yeah, okay, so the title of the episode is The Zelda Episode. Cole dies in this one.
The first Zelda episode, Cole dies, not clickbait.
Gone weird.
Gone weird. Yeah, you can absolutely, you really have to explore around in A Link to the Past in order to find even just things to progress. Some of the time, you have to like go around to the various places around and explore. And the game is not really that great in pointing you in the direction you need to go next. Whereas Ocarina is like better at that, but it's also not the best at that. It is like trying to rely on your previous experience with just stories in general to like push you in the right direction. Although it does more often than not tell you where you need to go next, it doesn't always reveal exactly where that is. I think the key point of this being a thing where it's like trying to point you in a direction but not doing the best job ever at it is okay. So for the first bit of the game, you are young Link. You are playing like a fucking 9-year-old
Child.
Very. I think young Link in Ocarina of Time is the youngest Link we play in the series.
How child are you? Very.
Because I think that one's like 9-10 years old, which most of the other child Links are like 11 at least. And you are going around to various temples and you're collecting sacred stones to try and prevent Ganondorf from entering the sacred realm and claiming the Triforce. Well, it turns out when you go in there and you use the 3 sacred stones as keys to access the sacred realm to get to the Triforce, it turns out you didn't shut the door behind you.
You fool.
You know, like a dumbass.
You absolute imbecile.
But it doesn't seem like the door can close, so I don't.
No, this is clearly Link being a complete and utter
Oh, like,
dumbass. Link's not 9. He's stupid.
You put the 3 sacred stones on their respective pedestals in the Temple of Time, and then you play the Song of Time on your Ocarina of Time, and the door just opens, and how do you close that?
You play it backwards.
No, that's in Majora's Mask.
We didn't figure that out until Majora's Mask.
No, it doesn't close the door in Majora's Mask. There is no Temple of Time in Majora's Mask. Playing the song backwards actually does something in Majora's Mask.
Okay, but did you try it in Ocarina of Time?
It doesn't do anything.
Have you personally tried it? What if every version of Link of Ocarina of Time is personalized?
But I don't know. I'm gonna kill Nintendo or something. Break into Miyamoto's office.
Wouldn't be the first time a Nintendo game had every copy personalized, 100%. Not clickbait. So you're doing that. You don't close the door behind you, presumably because you either don't know how or fucking can't. So Ganondorf comes in behind you. When you go into the door, you just see the Master Sword, and you're like, well, there's nothing else in here to interact with, so I guess I'll grab that. And you get frozen in time for like 7 years. And become a 16-year-old. Or a 17-year-old, because I can't remember if Link is 9 or 10. I think the answer changes depending on... But this, fun fact, this is one of my favorite fun facts about the Legend of Zelda franchise. Some of the games have manga series, have manga adaptations, and they're actually pretty good. And I think in Ocarina of Time manga, young Link is 9, but I think in the game he's 10. Regardless, you become in your late teens overnight. Yeah, from your perspective.
Puberty.
From your perspective. Because your mind is frozen in time the whole time.
Puberty speedrun edition.
Puberty.
Puberty speedrun, any percent. And the door being open allowed Ganondorf to come into the Sacred Realm and try to get the Triforce, but he can't because it turns out when someone of an impure heart pokes the Triforce, it splits into 3 pieces. The Triforce is made of 3 triangles, and then one of each of those triangles goes to 3 different people. And in order for the person of evil intentions to be able to do their wish, they have to get the other 2 pieces of the Triforce, because the one that has the quality they value most goes with them, and then the other 2 goes with 2 other people who embody those qualities the most. This is the introduction as well. Like, this is one of the other introductions of things. This is one of the few times we see the Triforce actually possibly being used in the entire series, and also the introduction of it splitting into 3 shards, and those shards specifically being the Triforces of wisdom, power, and courage, which like stay consistent for like a long time afterwards. The qualities of like wisdom, power, and courage, and those related to different parts of the Triforce, remain in the series again until Breath of the Wild, which has, if I recall correctly, no mention of the Triforce at all, which is bonkers to me. And then you, so this is like the game, this is Ocarina of Time trying to lead you in a direction and failing a little bit. You wake up in the ruined future where Ganondorf is now king and is like conquering the world and doing bad shit. And Navi tries to point you in the direction of the forest by going like, "Oh, do you remember like your friend from your childhood in the forest? I wonder what she's up to." But because it's not direct, I feel like that is direct enough that people should get the hint. But again, like 10, and this is your first time playing a game like this, I can see why that wouldn't land with people, especially when they are children.
Yeah, because children are stupid.
Children aren't necessarily stupid, they're just not very good at intuiting things, and knowing to go to the forest next with that hint is having to intuit a little bit.
Issue.
Or
age issue, whichever.
Both.
And like a Link to the Past is even worse with this because the guy you go to for hints is Sahasrara, and he is not very good at giving hints either. God, he's awful. They are technically more direct. They are more like, go to this area, but also like outside of, you can talk to Sahasrara through magic stones in the dungeons, and that will give you hints about those specific dungeons. But if you want to get overworld hints on where to go next, you have to go talk to him directly in the starting town that's over all the way over there, in one corner of the map. And it takes a while for you to get like the ability to quick travel. So for the most part, you gotta walk all the way back. So yeah, like the Majora's Mask, I think, because this is also kind of in the conversation, because Majora's Mask took like 2 years to make, which is insane. It only took 2 years, which is incredibly short development time, because they were only given 2 years to make the game by Miyamoto. And then they had to reuse a bunch of Ocarina assets and made very few new assets. And like that's why the 3-day time loop is in. And like I'm just thinking about Zelda games and hints in the moment, and how like Majora's Mask doesn't give you many hints either, but that works a lot better in Majora because it's a 3-day time loop. You are meant to just run around and observe things over and over and over and over again. And like fuck around and find out, hopefully in a good way.
No, only bad. Let the world die. Over and over.
You can fuck around in a good way, but you're always gonna find out in the worst possible way.
Yeah. I'll be real. They said that Tears of the Kingdom was like gonna be a darker story than Majora's Mask, and I don't think that's the case. The Tears of the Kingdom is definitely like a darker Zelda story than we usually get. As in, I say darker, it's more melancholy than a lot of the ones we usually get. But it's not, I would say, darker than Majora's Mask. I would hesitate to say it's darker than Twilight Princess. Which was for the longest time the only rated T for teen Zelda game. I think upon being re-rated for re-releases, Majora's Mask was rated T as well, but for the longest time it was just toilet paper. I say that because the acronym is TP. That's a little joke there. I don't think Twilight Princess is toilet paper in quality. I think it's a very good game. I like it a lot. I don't think any Zelda games are bad games.
It's 3-ply.
Wait, I don't think any of the mainline games are bad games. I don't give a shit about spin-offs. I don't care about those ones. You would have to pay me $1 million to play the CDI games.
I don't have that amount. Sorry.
Exactly. If anyone,
what if one of our viewers donates $1 million to this?
we don't have Patreon or anything, so they can't do that.
Alina, open a Patreon.
On it.
We need to get Cole to play off-brand Zelda games.
Oh no, the worst part is those ones were on brand.
The reward for our patrons would be just getting to see Cole play the games.
That's when we start.
Yeah,
That's when we start
get their
doing
pick
Let's
of
Plays
my
on the channel
spleen or
as well.
getting to watch Cole play these games.
We start a second channel for gaming.
No, we're not gonna do this like it's fucking 2010. Let's just put it all in the same thing.
Why not?
The algorithm.
Just look, we'll just become Smosh and have like 10 different channels.
How'd that work out for them?
Actually doing
I
pretty
haven't
okay.
heard that name in years.
I mean, yeah, now
answers that
but-
question.
They're doing pretty okay now. There's a long time where they weren't.
Yeah.
And honestly, I mean, personally, I would say doing pretty okay right now is due to like a stroke of incredible luck. I don't think I don't know a lot about the stuff that Smosh is doing currently, or even the stuff that Smosh did back in the day. But if I recall correctly, they did get their channel back because the people that they just knew people.
It was okay. Yeah. So basically, Defy, which was the company that bought Smosh before, shut down. It got bought by Good Mythical Morning.
Right.
Their studio, and then years later, Anthony Anthony came back, and him and Ian started hanging out again, and they approached Good Mythical Morning and said that they wanted to buy it back, and Good Mythical Morning was like, "A fucking course you can buy it back. Are you crazy?" Because they're all friends, so because they're all YouTubers.
All YouTubers of that era knew each other.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, Smosh is doing better now, and also under original ownership again now, because of incredible fucking luck.
Yes.
For the most part, I have no idea how well they're actually doing. I don't know anything about Smosh really.
They're doing okay. Like they're not like the juggernauts they used to be, but they're fine. They're fine.
Yeah, that'd be hard. It'd be hard to reach that a second time.
Especially with like fucking with Mr. Beast.
But yeah,
and
and all the other ways the platform has changed. Like,
yeah, that would be really hard to pull off.
Like, I am very glad that the channel is back in the hands of the actual creators of it, though. Like, I love the shift for creatives that has been happening for a while. Even though there are like a decent amount of people quitting YouTube, there are still like several turns that are happening in the favor of creators, and I love that for it. I was gonna say us, but we're kind of barely here. Sure, us.
Us. Trope
Us.
Troupe. We'll...
Yeah, us specifically.
Yes, us specifically. We're doing great. 9 subscribers. Let's go.
9 subscribers. Let's go.
It is an increasing number.
It's been going up, so.
I call it a win.
Yeah, so it's just that at the end of the day, I think that I've said this like 3 times now. I'm going to continue reiterating it. A Link to the Past established much more for the series in terms of mechanical things, in terms of formula, it stayed like that, and also sort of in terms of story. But Zelda stories don't super deviate too much, is what people like to say, and I think they're only half right. 'Cause I would never in a million fucking years, right? I'm gonna say 3 games in a row right now, 3 Zelda games in a row. They came out literally one right after the other, okay? I would not say that Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, and Twilight Princess are all the same plot, because they're not at all. Right? Like, people love to say that the Zelda stories don't deviate too much from, like, oh, go save the princess. But the fact is that they kind of do, actually, especially earlier on. 'Cause they were doing they've been doing shit for a long time. I think it's like after Twilight Princess, like right after Twilight Princess, you get the next console game, at least, is Skyward Sword, and so like in all of those games, Zelda is only an actual princess in Ocarina and Twilight Princess. Um, in Wind Waker, she is technically a princess, but she's more of a pirate than a princess. In Skyward Sword, she only establishes the monarchy at the end of the game, so not really a princess until later. And then she is a princess in Majora's Mask, but also she's not in the plot of Majora's Mask, so unrelated. And then obviously she is a princess in Breath of the Wild and Twilight. I mean, I wish Tears of the Kingdom had shit to do with Twilight Princess, but it's like things do change quite a lot, and even when she is consistently a princess, the context around everything still changes. Like, I would absolutely not describe Ocarina and Twilight Princess as the same game whatsoever, or as the same story whatsoever. And the same goes for Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom compared to those two. Like, they are not the same story. It doesn't like super deviate out of the very basics of it. Yes, because yeah, you do play Link every time, and more often than not, yes, you are going on a trek to save Zelda and or also the kingdom. But like, there's always more context, and the context is always different. The bare bones of it are the same. It has the same skeleton, but the way that all the meat sits on that skeleton is different every time.
The Legend of Zelda is made of skeletons.
The Legend of Skelland.
The Legend of Skeleton. Yep.
I'm just thinking of like different fucking. This is very rapidly gonna become a problem, because now I'm just thinking of like different weird Zelda things that people have conceptions about that I think are hugely fucking wrong.
Do you want to do a plot synopsis to stay on track, or do you want to...
Of Ocarina? I mean, what's there to say? I said the first bit of it already, and then you go to the other dungeons in the future time period to get 7 sages to fight and kill Ganondorf, and then you do that. It's like stuff happens along the way. Yeah, like there's a bunch of stuff that I think is actually quite neat. I love everything with the Shadow Temple. I'm just going to talk about the Shadow Temple, actually. So one of the implications in Ocarina is that Hyrule has a like super fucked up history that we don't get to explore or see a lot of. It is mostly chronicled in the Shadow Temple. The way you get to the Shadow Temple really kind of expounds on part of the themes of Ocarina of Time, which is like that loss of childhood joy and innocence. Because you get the Master Sword, and Link ages, in his perception, in the blink of an eye, into the game calls him an adult, but he's like 17, so like it's like almost. And like you go to all of the places that are like a part of the childhood part of the timeline, and they've all been like irreparably like warped and twisted or just generally changed, and you try and like you do solve the problems that have cropped up there, but that doesn't put them back to the way that they were. And at some point in throughout the entire thing, you do have the ability to go back to the past by putting the Master Sword back into its pedestal. It becomes as if you never drew it in the first place, and that sets you back to the past. But even still, you don't have to go back to the past until you have to go to the Shadow Temple. Because in order to gain access to the Shadow Temple, you have to go to the bottom of the well. And the well is drained in the future, it is not drained in the past. And so you have to learn a song from the future, travel back to the past, play that song to the guy that you learn it from, and then the well empty, because he's in the windmill, and the windmill is powered by the well, and it's the Song of Storms, and it makes the windmill spin faster and drain more water from the well. And you go to the bottom of the well, and like even Kakariko Village, a place that you spend a significant amount of time as Child Link in, the place that is like really important to a significant bit of that has like a good fun memories for Link as a character there. You go to the bottom of the well and you find everything underneath it is rotten and despoiled, and so even traveling back to the past, even going to the place that you thought was the most secure, where those memories would never be tarnished, is also fucked up. There is nothing that exists that is not stained by your new knowledge of the future. Only go to the Shadow Temple, and the first thing that happens when you walk through a wall, because you get down at the bottom of the world, you get the Eye of Truth that lets you see through illusions, like how you can see that this greed and corruption was here all along. And you go into the Shadow Temple, and the very first thing when you walk through an illusory wall and the wall speaks to you is that it says, "Here lies Hyrule's history of bloodshed and greed," or something along those lines. I don't know if that's the line exactly. Now, you don't actually find like more historical tablets in the Shadow Temple that actually directly outline Hyrule's history of bloodshed and greed. But still, the implication is pretty fucking heavy. And many people who played the game as a child like directly cite the bottom of the well and the Shadow Temple as like the fucking freakiest parts of the game, because they are the freakiest parts of the game. It is the part where like the childhood innocence that Link had, the whatever bits of it he still carried on with him, are like fully gone now. That there is nothing left. And fittingly, technically after the Shadow Temple, you're supposed to go to the Spirit Temple. There is contention about this. Okay, so you need the Eye of Truth to access both the Shadow Temple and the Spirit Temple. And also an item from the Shadow Temple to access the Spirit Temple. But in the pause menu, where you see the like little completion thingies, you get little medallions whenever you finish the temple. The Shadow Temple is listed last, so I think they were switched around at some point, and then late in development, they just like didn't change the menu back.
Whoopsies.
It is what it'd be like that sometimes in the game development.
Yeah, well, yeah, you do, right?
Yeah.
Especially when this is like, oh, this is the first 3D title we're making for this franchise. Like, we don't have time for that.
I'm too busy making it 3-dimensional.
I'm too busy trying to render the fucking trees, man.
I
We're
can't
using
believe
all our fucking budget and polygons.
I can't believe those leaves are one polygon.
And the Spirit Temple, I think the Spirit Temple works much better after the Shadow Temple, because the Shadow Temple is very much about that loss of innocence. So you can never, now that you have the knowledge of the future and how things turn out, you can never go back to the unspoiled eyes of a child. Even if physically you can transmogrify yourself back into one. Via time travel shenanigans. But then you go to the Spirit Temple, and the Spirit Temple is all about the union between those two perspectives. You can only access one half of the Spirit Temple as young Link and the other half as adult Link. And it's about the unification of those two perspectives. Just because that innocence is gone doesn't mean that the world is forever damaged and that there is no beauty left in it. And it doesn't mean it does. Blah, 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 blah. I'm getting real mixed up on my words right now. It doesn't mean that everything is gone. It doesn't mean there's nothing left worth fighting for. Those things are all still there. Things are just as beautiful as they were when you were a child. It just might take more effort to see them. And then when you go through the part of the temple as as adult Link, every temple has a corresponding sage, and the Spirit Temple's sage is Naboru, who you hear of in the future. I love everything with the Spirit Temple so much. So you gain access to the Spirit Temple as an adult, because you can only access the Gerudo area as an adult, and then you go through the Gerudo area, which has a whole bunch of stuff with it that I don't want to get into right now. Maybe I'll talk about the Gerudo in a future thing. You go through everything in Gerudo Town, and you get to the Spirit Temple as adult Link, and you hear about Naboru in the future first. You hear about who she becomes first, which is the leader of the Gerudo, the right hand of Ganondorf, his evil wife. And then you meet her, you get to the Spirit Temple, and you find out that you can't progress because you have to go through this little tiny crevice, and you can't fit through that crevice with your giant adult man hands. So you gotta go back in time and become a child to fit through the hole. And you get back there as a kid because Sheik, who's been following you around the entire time, gives you a song to teleport to the location. And so you go back to the past, you teleport there, and you meet Naboru, and you ask her about Ganondorf, and she's like, "What? I fucking hate that guy." And then you go through the half of the Spirit Temple as a kid, and you get the silver gauntlets that allow you to access the other half of the temple as an adult, and you see Naboru outside being kidnapped by Ganondorf's two moms. They're not lesbians, they're sisters. To be clear to the audience, they're not. They are not gay for each other. They are siblings.
That's not gonna stop them. It's not gonna stop any.
I hope that would stop some people.
Okay, well, it will stop some people.
But not all.
Never stops everyone. There's always someone.
This also isn't a translation thing where it's like, in the original text they were lesbians, but then it was localized to sisters. No, they've always been sisters.
Fair.
No one's ever a lesbian in the original transcripts.
Sometimes they are.
They're really good friends, guys. Guys, you don't understand.
They're just roommates,
really,
I swear.
Really good friends that hang out all of the time, constantly, and live in the same house.
Naked.
And they were roommates.
They were roommates.
God, they were roommates.
Yeah, let me amend my statement. No one's ever lesbian in the original transcript if they're written before the year 2000.
That might be factually untrue, but it's funny enough that I'm gonna let it go. And you go through the second half of the Spirit Temple as an adult with the knowledge now that, Naboru's been, kidnapped and brainwashed to become Ganondorf's wife. And you get to the end of the Spirit Temple, and you fight what you think is the boss, which is an especially tough Dark Knuckle. Also referred to in some future games as Dark Nuts. Which is probably a mislocalization, a mistranslation of Dark Knight, but fuck it, man, I still call them Dark Nuts. No one stops me. You fight 3 different Dark Nuts in they're actually, sorry, they are called Dark Knuckles in Ocarina. You fight 3 of them. You fight one of them as Young Link, where your sword does a lot less damage, and it's a very difficult, grueling fight, and it's, I think, thematically about showing you the fact of you might be able to see more things as a kid. You might have access to this location, but you lack the power to do things efficiently. And then you fight another one as Adult Link, and it's way easier. Because you have a much bigger sword that does way more damage. And then you fight a third one at the very end of the temple, and when you beat that one, the armor falls away from it to reveal that it's actually Noboru, and she's like, holy fuck, you broke the armor, and the armor broke the brainwashing, I'm gonna run the fuck out of here. And then Ganondorf's evil moms show up, and they're like, no you're not. We're gonna teleport you away! Bye! And then you fight Ganondorf's evil moms, and partway through the fight, they transform into one much younger mom. They fuse. They Dragon Ball fusion.
The ultimate
into
fate of
one
all
person.
lesbians.
What?
The ultimate fate of all lesbians. Dragon Ball fusion.
Ball fusion. It's how you make more lesbians.
That like how you make less lesbians because like you're fusing two people into one.
Well, no, see, once they separate, 3 come out instead of 2.
That's I don't know which is more fucked up, honestly.
I mean, existentially, a third person appearing out of nowhere is terrifying. So that one, probably. There being less lesbians in the world is just something that happens whenever an old woman dies.
Margaret Thatcher was lesbian?
She better not have been. Yeah, then you after that you go fight Ganondorf, and then the game is over. So like I ended up on the topic about how I think every Zelda game technically is a different plot if you examine them in their respective context. Same skeleton, different meat. Because I don't know if you were there for that, Peter.
I heard the Legend of Zelda.
Oh yeah, that was right after that. So you almost were. Yeah. I think they all have the same skeleton for the most part, but different meat on the skeleton. It settles differently on those bones. And I ultimately think that Ocarina is about the loss and the loss of childlike innocence, but the regaining of a different, still hopeful perspective on the future. You lose the innocence of a child, but gain the ability to actually do shit. It's repeatedly made reference to time and time again within the game that like young Link can't do jack. Like you're barred from accessing certain areas. You can't do not actually just have the strength to do certain things. Your equipment is kind of lackluster. You are given explosives by the Gorons, but they seem to age weird, so I don't know if they exactly understand. And also, they're kind of immune to explosions, so I don't think if they understand that you like shouldn't give an elf kid bombs.
You shouldn't give a kid bombs.
You can give a Goron kid bombs because they're immune to explosions.
Yeah, okay. Unless the kid is A, Goron, or B, worth exploding.
Worth exploding? Oh, I mean, we do kill some infant Dodongos, but Dodongos also explode on their own, so...
Yeah, no, and some kids also deserve to be exploded.
Name a child that deserves to be exploded.
No.
Why not?
I don't want to get put on a watch list again.
Yeah, that's fair enough, I guess.
I also don't know any off the top of my head. I said that more as a general statement. I didn't actually know any kids personally that deserve to be exploded, but some do. I guarantee you.
I thought the statement was going to end that I never knew any kids personally.
That's not untrue.
I mean, surely you knew kids when you were also a kid.
Well, yeah, but those kids will eventually die and metamorphose into people.
Metamorphose into people.
Yeah, once they shed the dead cocoon of their childlike form. Because as we all know,
Okay.
growth spurts are actually you falling over, dying, and then your skeleton hatching and growing a new set of flesh.
I never had a growth spurt.
I guess I do know a child is full.
Cool, I can't believe you're still a child.
I'm not, but I
But you
know
never
you
had a-
enough to know that if I like push against this in any real form, you're just gonna double down.
Yeah, 'cause it's funny.
And true.
So I'm choosing to just ignore it.
Ignore it all you want. You cannot hide the fact you were born in 2016 from me.
Alright, I absolutely was not born in 2016. I'm not fucking 8 years old.
You're right, you were born in 2017.
You could be 7 if you were born in 2016.
I mean, I guess, yeah, I would be. Given when my birthday is, which as we all know is at the end of the year. December.
Yeah, December 32nd.
December 32nd. Born December 32nd. 2000 and number. No, but I've played Ocarina of Time and therefore I've lost my childlike innocence.
You've lost your
As I
childhood
know.
innocence 5 times.
The thief 5 times? You have to keep replaying it or it grows back.
Like my appendix.
Like your appendix! Does your appendix actually grow back?
Fuck no! I hope not, at least.
I would hope it doesn't. I still remember the terror when you told me that you were in the hospital. Because it was just a text message that said, I'm in the hospital, with no fucking context.
Yeah, I figured I should inform you of my situation, but still keep you on your toes, in case it devolves into something like cancer.
Christ.
I cherish our friendship.
You trying to convince yourself of that?
No, I just thought it would be funny to say that out loud right then. This doesn't make it any less true, it's just I'm also using it for comedy. I don't know, my hot take kind of ended earlier than I thought it was gonna.
Yeah, now you can go through the entire Zelda.
Oh, you're right, I can! Oh, thank you? Question mark for reminding me? Because I hate thinking about this. But once I start, it's hard to stop. So the Zelda timeline. For those of you who maybe only joined the fandom in, like, when Breath of the Wild came out, which was after the Zelda timeline was canonized, previously, the Zelda timeline before Skyward Sword came out was just a thing that was intensely theorized and debated between various, we'll call them Zelda scholars. Hotly debated if they even could be all fit into one timeline, if that even technically worked. If they did, what does that look like and why? Everyone's like rationale for why which game came after which one was all like very, very fun to watch. Uh, it was wonderful. And then Nintendo comes out with the Hyrule Historia, which released around the same time as Skyward Sword. I think it was a tie-in package for not for some versions of the game, but like just like in general. This also exists now, if I recall correctly, and it is boring, sort of. It's the one of the least interesting options, and doesn't take any of the crazy goddamn leaps that I had seen some people take, which were so fucking fun. I saw one guy once try to justify the idea that the great windfish in Link's Awakening is also Oshus, the ocean god from Phantom Hourglass. That was incredible to watch someone do so many mental gymnastics to try and justify their interpretation of the timeline. And that was the thing that I loved about it. Because no one was correct. Everyone was wrong all the time.
Yeah,
including
so very confidently.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was also wrong when I made my own guesses about the timeline, because it was just really fucking fun to think about. Like, yeah, what if these are all in one shared connected universe and not just like different like little dollops of different timelines and things? And the idea of there being like a timeline split from Ocarina of Time like started around then, of like, oh yeah, no, it would make sense for Ocarina to have a timeline split, because at the end of the game, Link goes back in time, and Link is sent back in time by Zelda and says, like, I'm going to send you back in time before any of this happens in the first place, and then you can stop it from happening in the first place. But, like, those events still have to transpire for Link to remember them, otherwise they have no origin, and you fucking bootstrap paradox yourself. And what ends up happening is, like, that's where people like started to develop like the idea of the split timeline from, of like, okay, so there is an adult timeline and a child timeline. The child timeline resulting from Link going back in time and telling Zelda everything about Ganondorf's plot before it even happens, and the adult timeline being the one he was sent back in time from. And like, some of these things ended up being correct, right? Like the split timeline, that was correct. The concept of some of the games that were in the split timelines ended up being right. Like, everyone guessed after Ocarina of Time, everyone was guessing like, oh, the reason that, like, okay, because the plot of the beginning scroll of Wind Waker goes like, in the ancient times there was a hero, and then when the calamity happened again, we waited for the hero to arise a second time, and then he didn't, and then the world flooded.
It escalates quickly.
Yeah. And like, people were immediately theorizing, oh, like a hero didn't show up because Link went back in time from Ocarina of Time, so like there's not a Link from the adult timeline to like reincarnate back into the cycle, or like oh no, Link didn't show up then because he was in the events of Majora's Mask, and things like that, and like, those were technically correct. I'm gonna lean over real quick. Which one of these? I'm doing this blind. This one is the Hyrule Historia.
Just know that by touch.
Yes. Yes, I did know that by touch.
Alrighty.
Well, all these so like these 3 giant books came out. One of them is the Hyrule Historia. One of them is Art and Artifacts that has a bunch of art in it. I really like that one. That's the one I got most recently. Then the other one is just a general encyclopedia. I loved reading that one. That was such a good time for me. Let me just flip to the timeline page here because I don't remember everything from it. It's in like the middle of the. Yeah, here it is. So from the split in because like okay, so with the split that we have here, because like most people thought when it came to Wind Waker, most people thought, as far as I'm aware, this is what most people thought, that Link didn't show up because he was doing the events of Majora's Mask at the time, which is in an alternate reality, so he couldn't appear. But it turns out that the other idea was right, where that is the adult timeline, so there just wasn't a Link to reincarnate into the cycle, and that leads to Wind Waker. Wind Waker leads to Phantom Hourglass. Wind Waker going into Phantom Hourglass makes a lot of sense because those two, Phantom Hourglass is literally actually just a direct sequel to Wind Waker, so like that one always had to come after Wind Waker. But that's the thing that you'll find is like some of these are just actual direct sequels to each other. Like Majora's Mask always has to come after Ocarina, like directly after it. Some of the depending on where, like Phantom Hourglass has to come after Wind Waker, and Spirit Tracks has to come after Phantom Hourglass because they are sequels to each other. But like some of these other ones like aren't things that make a whole lot of sense, right? Because like looking at the child era, right, where we go into Majora's Mask, and then somewhere between then and there, the demon thief Ganondorf is executed, and that goes into Twilight Princess. But then Twilight Princess goes into Four Swords Adventures for some reason, and under there it reads the resurrection of Ganondorf, which is fine, but then the resurrection of Vati. But Vati hasn't shown up at all in the timeline previously, except before the timeline split, in the Minish Cap. That's right, everybody. The Minish Cap is the second game in the timeline.
Whoa.
I don't know how that makes any fucking sense.
I don't either. For entirely different reasons.
Well, at least the historians and the laymen can agree on one thing. That makes no sense.
Now, Four Swords being after Minish Cap also makes sense. That one actually does make sense because Four Swords, which is different from Four Swords Adventures, is also has Vati in it. There was a period of time for like the handheld GBA games and the one of the GameCube ones, Four Swords Adventures is the GameCube one, I think. I get those mixed up all the time, so I don't know for sure. Where Vati was the bad guy instead of Ganon, who at that point in the like real world timeline there was no Ganondorf. Still, there was just Ganon, Demon King Ganon. And so I was like, the timeline in this thing is like a pile of shit. But it's an official pile of shit. And that's what makes me mad about it. Because, like, when the Zelda timeline was, like, 17 random people all just, like, relentlessly theorizing about how we can fit these things together, that was really fun. And if it was kind of shit, it was excusable. Because it's just people
It was
having a good
effectively
time.
17 people in a garage.
Yeah. And it was just like a bunch of people having a good time trying to workshop something together. I fucking make jokes about like people's weird, fucked up, shitty ideas some of the time, but like that's because none of the ideas were good. There's not a good way to cobble all of these together into a cohesive unit. And then
so
to have,
Nintendo didn't even fucking try.
I mean, listen, some of these do make sense, right? The only two that, like I said, right, the Phantom Hourglass shit, that makes sense because those games are all direct sequels of each other. Majora's Mask into Twilight Princess, I can understand that. It's Twilight Princess into Four Swords Adventures that makes no goddamn sense. And then you have the third timeline, which is the hero is defeated timeline, the Ganondorf wins timeline. that like that's the one they just put all of the games from like before A Link to the Past in. A Link to the Past and earlier, that's just where all those games went because they couldn't think of anywhere the fuck else to put them. And like the thing is though, like the thing that really astounds me about this is that the Zelda games early on, right, from A Link to the Past and into some of the GBA games, at least the Game Boy Advance games, well, they're not all on the Game Boy Advance, but the Game Boy guns, they're all kind of inferred to be the same Link. Like the Link that's in the Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons is the same Link as Link's Awakening, is maybe the same Link as A Link to the Past. I don't know about that last one, but like Oracle Link and Link's Awakening Link, those are the same guy. At least, if nothing else. And so like they had done stuff where it's like, yeah, there is actually something of a timeline here, but it's not between every single game, it's between specific ones. Like, obviously, Four Swords Adventures comes after Four Swords, and it would make sense for Minish Cap to be before Four Swords, and that's like its own little weirdo trilogy, right? And then, like, Phantom Hourglass is a direct sequel to Wind Waker, and Spirit Tracks is a direct sequel to Phantom Hourglass. And those are their own weird little thing, right? Mm-hmm. And it was like, it worked a lot better when it was like, oh, so these three are all obviously linked, and then we have to, like, stretch the truth a little bit to try and fit these other ones together. But I've got, like, listen, alright, everyone's ideas were kind of weird and bad because it was 17 people in their garages trying to throw together a cohesive timeline from decades of random shit.
But when you get people per garage.
Yes. But when you have an official licensed pile of shit from Nintendo, it just feels different.
Yeah.
I love the Hyrule Historia. I love the fact that there's like fun little trivia in this book. Some of it is trying to like try and like make the timeline seem more cohesive than it actually is, but that's fine. I'm lenient on mistakes like that.
Yeah.
Some of the time. Some of the time.
Yeah, evidently not all of the time.
No, clearly not.
Yeah.
I gotta lean back here and try and wedge it back in my shelf. Oh, my arm hurts.
Yeah, that's the case for most media when, you know, fans theorize, it's fans theorizing. It's all in fun. It's not like an official attempt to try to connect everything together, but then when the actual...
Yeah, and unless it's an indie dev, it's never going to be correct. Or unless it's an indie game made by like one guy who's like, yeah, that's fucking awesome, we're putting that into the game.
Yeah.
It's never gonna be canon otherwise.
Yeah, but then when the big company that owns the thing does it themselves and then makes it official, not only if it's done poorly is it like disappointing, but also it takes all of the fun out of the previous theorizing, because it's like, nah, whatever you think is wrong. This pile of trash, that's the real shit.
I don't like your pile of trash, because it's not mine.
My pile of trash was way fucking better.
It was still a pile of trash, but it was better.
Because it was mine. It belonged to me.
There are many like it, but this one is mine.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, this just reminds me of like another Zelda theory that people really sometimes wanted to exist. I sometimes wanted it to exist because I just thought it was fucking rad. But there's the Triforce, right? And the Triforce is 3 triangles connected by their tips. So you've got one triangle on top, and then the top of the other 2 triangles connect to its bottom 2 points. And then those 2 triangles touch on the points they conjoin as well, and it forms a big triangle. That's how the Triforce work.
You can just say it's an unfolded pyramid.
You know, I never actually.
You hate me for that, don't you?
I really do.
You're not wrong.
It is an unfolded pyramid with a gap in the center. There is no upside down triangle in the middle.
No, it's just a different color.
And for years, I didn't hear what you said, so I'm just not
No,
going to respond
it's
to
just a
it.
different color.
It isn't. First of all, there's just nothing there. There's nothing there. It's a gap. There's a hole there. And some people theorize about the existence of, well, you see, it might not be the Triforce. It might be the Tetraforce. And there's a secret fourth triangle.
What would the fourth triangle do?
Well, you have power, you have wisdom, you have courage, and you have...
Riz.
Sure. Why not?
Skills
Riz.
with a Z.
Skills, but with a Z.
Yeah.
So... That's basically every thought I have about the Zelda timeline. Now I can approach it as an actual fun thing, which is my favorite. My favorite fun thing about it is how every appearance of Ganondorf until Tears of the Kingdom is all the same guy.
I imagine like the first time he encountered Link and Zelda, it was just like, and what a nuisance. And then it happens again, and he's like, wait a minute.
God, it sucks.
And then it happens a third time, and he's like, okay, hold the fuck up.
Yeah, Cole has actually talked to me about this exact topic before.
It's really, I love thinking about it. Okay, because only one of them actually has the benefit of having fought Link and Zelda before. Because the other one is the one in Twilight Princess, and he never fought Link and Zelda. He just was executed for being like a demon thief. They called him the demon thief. I imagine he also killed people, I guess, but
This is generally a piece of shit.
I don't know why thieving alone would get you executed.
Yeah, like you were being executed for the crime of thievery. Thievery? Also 50 counts of murder. That makes more sense.
Yeah, you should have led with that.
Yeah, it's like, why didn't you lead with that?
We're reading them in chronological order.
I see. Court.
But the one in Wind Waker is the exact same one in Ocarina of Time that you fight and then seal in the Sacred Realm at the end of the game. He's the adult timeline guy. So you see Ganondorf in Ocarina of Time, and he's the leader of the Gerudo, and he is his goal, technically, that he states, is to take over Hyrule for the Gerudo, but then when he does actually gain control of Hyrule in the future timeline, he sure does just like fill Castletown with monsters, so I think he might have lost his motivations along the way.
It's all a lie, a ruse. I fucking hate everyone.
A really popular fan interpretation, and one that I enjoy engaging in, is, so technically at the start of the timeline in Skyward Sword, the Demon King Demise curses Link and Zelda that an incarnation of his hatred will follow them. Wherever the spirit of the hero and the blood of the goddess goes, he will also be there. And it's very heavily implied that the incarnation of that is, of course, Ganondorf/Ganon, because Demise does just look like if Ganondorf was a full demon man. Instead of having long flowing orange hair, his hair is fire, but that's like the core difference. Oh, and all the scales. Yeah, I forgot about those.
I'll count that as ginger.
Count Demise as ginger.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, if the fire is orange, so I guess,
Yeah.
sure. Ganondorf is canonically ginger, though, so you can claim him as well.
Yes!
Like, there is no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
I hate everyone else.
So does he!
This is perfect.
Just like me for real.
So the implication that some people read into that is that Ganondorf starts his life as like a normal guy, and then sometime in his existence, the spirit of demise like gets all up in his brain and starts influencing him. It's not like straight up possession. It's more like it starts. It's like some interpretations of like when the symbiote bonds with Spider-Man, with Peter Parker Spider-Man, and it's just like whispering to him in his ear, but it's like in his own voice, so it's like influencing his thoughts. It's like that. And I do like that interpretation. I don't think it's really all that supported by the text, but I do like that because I like Ganondorf as a tragic figure. That's more fun to me.
I like
Okay,
Ganondorf as a
here's my
ginger
interpretation.
figure.
I'm just putting it in the chat.
Uh-huh.
Get this screen whenever whenever he's born.
For our listeners.
Choose a way to born. Kind baby, evil baby. It's an ad for the one of those like you're the emperor of the nation kind of games.
Yeah, specifically Emperor and Beauties, not sponsored at all. Don't.
I don't even know if that game has ever been real.
I don't know. I'm just being cautious.
And you're choosing
Shitty mobile
two
game
different
ad.
babies.
Choose a way to born. God.
Choose a way to born. Now that's also a fun interpretation. I'm not opposed to that one.
It's the funniest one, which is the one I'm automatically going to believe in every time. I don't think it's ever going to be canonized.
As an infant that just came into existence, I choose evil. Clearly.
So like you meet him in Ocarina of Time. He's the leader of the Gerudo, and he does evil stuff, and then you meet him next again in Wind Waker, and it's the same guy because this Ganondorf in Wind Waker is the Ganondorf at the end of Ocarina of Time that you seal away in the Sacred Realm. He got out. The bonds got weak eventually, and he destroyed Hyrule. And then, for the crime of destroying Hyrule, he was sealed away again.
Again.
But not as good this time, so he gets out a second time.
This will hold him slightly worse holding self.
And he starts his plot. The plot this time for him though isn't to destroy Hyrule. It's to because Hyrule was flooded by the gods as a way of just as like petty bullshit. Just so that Ganondorf wouldn't have it.
Yes, fine. If we can't have it, nobody can. Noah's Ark, that shit.
And the like Hylian people were told to evacuate to the highest mountaintops before that happened. I can't imagine that not all of them made it, but I imagine all of them probably did make it because there's a lot of legacy characters in Wind Waker. And that is the same Ganondorf as Ocarina of Time, literally the exact same guy. And his plan this time is to unite the Triforce bearers again to wish on the Triforce to bring Hyrule out from under the waves so that he can rule it. He doesn't care if it's an empty kingdom. He wants to be in charge of that fucking place.
Welcome to my house.
As you can see, he does a really good job of it. Actually, he very nearly succeeds, and only doesn't because of the like direct intervention of the last king of Hyrule, who transmogrified himself into a boat. In mind only, his body is frozen in time in the cellar.
Uh-huh.
You know, like you
his
do.
His mind is in your boat.
Mm-hmm. In my boat? I don't have a boat.
The boat that you have when you play the game as Link.
But I've never played the game. Does that mean he's
I mean-
dead?
This Ganondorf is actually the one that like kind of kickstarted the trend of seeing him as a tragic figure. I say trend as if it is a trendy thing to do. The concept of him being a tragic figure, because this Ganondorf explicitly states that his motivation in trying to take over Hyrule was the fact that like the Gerudo live in the desert and it's really hard to live there, and Hyrule just had tons of shit and never bothered to share it. And there's even the implication in Ocarina and in Wind Waker that previously the Hyrule and the Gerudo were at war with each other, and that part of the reason why the Gerudo have such an inhospitable part of the desert is because they lost really bad.
The Hylians invented nukes and tested them out on the Gerudo.
I mean, that's technically possible because, so like I know some people who think that like Breath of the Wild did come up with the idea of the Sheikah having like advanced technology that had to be forcibly buried and forgotten because it was too dangerous, and the King of Hyrule was like, you guys can't have that shit. But if you try and overthrow me,
How funny that would be! He knows.
He knows.
but like this implication does go all the way back to Ocarina of Time, of the Sheikah having access to like just some crazy shit at one point, and being far more powerful than they are now. But like the monologue in Wind Waker that Ganondorf has at the end of the game is like, my land, the land of my home, the wind that blew over it was sun-scorched and hot, and it only brought death, while the wind that blew through Hyrule was pleasant. I coveted that wind. And then he tries to stab you
Ow.
for like 30 minutes. Because that's when the boss fight starts.
Like to think he's like you know he's got a cool stance going, and you know he's going away, and then it's like as he's monologuing, a knife slowly comes into view of the screen.
The Ganondorf in Wind Waker is like definitely older than he was in Ocarina, like physically at least, but he fights with so much more like skill and dexterity. Ganondorf in Ocarina of Time is like a powerhouse physically and magically. He's shooting magic bolts at you the entire time, punching you in the face or trying to punch you in the face, and then he transforms into the demon form, becomes Demon King Ganon, and begins like just like viscerally trying to gore you with his big tusks. But like this Ganondorf in Wind Waker, which is the same guy, fights with like an intense amount of patience. He dual wields katanas.
I'm so cool that one katana's not enough.
And he's very much the kind of fighter that like waits for the chance to strike and then takes it the moment he sees it. Which like it's the same guy, and you can tell it's the same guy in that way of like he's an incredibly proficient fighter, but he just fights differently. Like you can tell this is a guy that is like he's lost bad before, and he's not gonna lose in the same way, and he doesn't lose in the same way because instead of getting sealed away in the Sacred Realm, you stab him in the head, and he turns into stone instead of dying because this game is still rated E10.
Killing I mean a stone creating blow. I will now turn into a statue.
Blow.
I'm definitely not dead. Don't worry, kiddos. Death isn't real. Wink.
That's the moral of all Legend of Zelda, like the entire franchise. You know, Link's reincarnated, Zelda something, and it never truly dies. This isn't real.
That is kind of how it goes. So it's the spirit of the hero and the blood of the goddess. and just fucking Ganon, the same guy, over and over again.
He's really fucking upset about it by this point.
Because technically, I think Ganondorf is supposed to become Demon King Ganon at some point, and so like every time it's Ganon, it's the same guy. Maybe that's a maybe though. I just think it'd be really funny if it's all the one dude.
I love that idea of like the other two keep getting reincarnated, and like Ganon just keeps getting angrier and angrier, and they're just like, "What's your deal, bro? We just met you," and he's like, "Just met."
I've known you 13 times over, and you fuckers never quit, so I won't either.
What are you talking about? Die!
Surprise attack! There is no floor!
There is no floor!
I mean, seeing it, there's not really, there's no monologue in Breath of the Wild that I remember, when it comes to fighting Ganon, and he just starts killing.
That's the thing. In Breath of the Wild, the implication, I think the implication is that, like, the Mise's curse has, like, so absolutely overtaken the sealed away Ganondorf that exists in that timeline that they're just, like, at that current moment in time, there is nothing left of his mind.
Blonde boy detected. Time to kill.
Time to kill. Because the Ganondorf that you end up meeting in Tears of the Kingdom is, a different Ganondorf than Ocarina of Time Ganondorf. But the Legend of Calamity Ganon from Breath of the Wild goes back 10,000 years. And Ganondorf from Tears of the Kingdom was only sealed away. He wasn't killed. He was sealed away beneath Hyrule Castle over 10,000 years ago. So I can't imagine that he's terribly sane during the events of Breath of the Wild. If he's even still conscious, well, he's like, because he's not sealed in the sense of like he's been put into the Sacred Realm and locked in there. He's sealed in the sense of his body's been mummified, and his mind is still in it, sort of, and it reawakens when Link and Zelda find it under the fucking castle, which is just, I find it so much funnier if that somehow is the same Ganondorf still, and Link and Zelda get close enough into his vicinity that, yes, he is, like, threat detected.
Threat detected, anti-twink protocol.
Anti-twink protocol.
Blonde children in vicinity.
Blonde children in vicinity.
It doesn't really work for Tears of the Kingdom because that is, first of all, the oldest Link in the series, and he's like 20 something.
Like 21, I think, just barely, because he's like 17 still in Breath of the Wild. There's like a 4 or 5 year time skip between the two, so he's like 17 in the first game, Breath of the Wild, and then he's like 20 something. He's in his early 20s in Tears of the Kingdom. Well, what are we? Yeah.
If Ganon is as old as we're saying he is, that's a child.
Fair enough.
Him.
I can't argue with that. Look, I could, but I don't want to.
like, sure, we sure legally Link's an adult, but in the eyes of Ganon, who's been around for thousands of years, child.
He's definitely 21 or over in Tears of the Kingdom, because in Breath of the Wild, you can try to order an alcoholic drink in Gerudo Town, but you're refused service because the bartender doesn't think you're old enough to drink. And then in Tears of the Kingdom, you can get alcohol.
Spooky.
So that's what's up with Ocarina of Time and Wind Waker Ganondorf. But Twilight Princess Ganondorf is technically the same guy. It's just, if the events of Ocarina of Time don't happen, that's what happens to him instead. They try to execute him, but that Ganondorf still has the Triforce of Power, somehow. And apparently, in this interpretation of things, that makes him functionally goddamn immortal. Like, he literally cannot die so long as he thinks he cannot die. So they
let me
try
kill
to
you. Can't do
execute
it, bro.
Yeah, not allowed.
No.
No.
I don't have written permission, sorry.
No. So they try to execute him. It doesn't work. So they send him into the Twilight Realm, where he somehow becomes like a big floating head made out of fire. Don't know how that happened. Anyway, he then manipulates the one of the servants of the royalty to deposing the actual true heir, and then becoming in charge of the Twilight Realm, and then using that to put Ganondorf back into the real world. Hooray! You fight him at the end of the game. Twilight Princess has my favorite Ganondorf boss fight because you go through Hyrule Castle. You get to the end of Hyrule Castle, and first you don't fight Ganondorf. You fight Zelda's body that has currently been possessed and is being puppeted around by him. So you fight her first. That's where the game gets in. It's traditional at this point. Tradition established early in the series. Traditional game of tennis against Ganondorf.
I challenge you to a friendly game of tennis, Link.
What? Sorry. Yeah! That's the one you play tennis against. You play it against Puppet Zelda. And then you don't fight Ganondorf. You fight Ganondorf in his dark beast form, where he's like a giant boar, and you fight Boardorf as Wolf Link.
Boardorf.
Call him Ganondorf.
Boardorf.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, you fight Ganondorf as Wolf Link, because you can turn into a wolf in that game.
Dog.
And then and then after that happens, Zelda's spirit is restored to her body, and you go out and you fight him again for a third time. Phase 3, baby, on horseback. Well, he's also on a horse that showed up somewhere. And Zelda's also on the back of your horse, and she's like shooting arrows at him with the bow of light to try and like weaken him. And then phase 4.
Oh my god.
Is a sword fight between you and Ganondorf, and then he dies, and he does actually die in this one.
Then the 5th phase is a javelin throw, and the 6th
No.
phase is an axe throwing contest, and then the 7th phase is chess.
I love this 4-phase boss fight. It's my favorite one in the entire series. It's so fun because every one is using different mechanics throughout the entirety of the game. I just love that.
Yeah, that is like just good boss design. I wish more games incorporated multiple mechanics from the rest of the game into major boss fights, especially the final one.
Yeah.
Like a problem that Zelda games in this time period end up having is that you get the dungeon item in the dungeon and use it a lot in that dungeon, and you use it in amount in the open world, but then you don't really use it in other dungeons. You only really use the dungeon item in the dungeon. And like that is the case for the final boss fight in Twilight Princess, but also, first of all, the final area of the game is the one that kind of breaks that rule, because of course you have to use every ability you've gotten throughout the entire game in the final dungeon. And then the final boss fights here mix in mechanics from various boss fights previously and various other fights throughout the game. Like the fight against Ganondorf, the sword fight at the very end, is really similar to fighting Darknuts throughout the game. And the fight with Puppet Zelda is similar to a different boss fight. Or like when you fight... I don't remember if there's Wizros in this game. I feel like there are, but I also feel like there aren't. Weird. No, I'm thinking of Pose. There are Pose in this game. There are not Wizros.
What?
But like there's still it's still like similar enough to other. Yeah, don't worry about it. It's still like similar enough to other boss mechanics that you can figure it out pretty quickly. And then Borganon is just fun because he charges at you, but then you go into Wolf Link form, and as he charges at you, Midna grabs him with her giant telekinetic hair hand and throws him to the side, and you just start like trying to claw the shit out of his belly while he's tipped over.
Belly rubs. No.
Because Ganon's weak spot in all the parts where he's being fought is the giant glowing stab wound on his chest from when he was about to be executed. From when they tried and failed to execute him, there's just like a big glowing scar left over. The Ganondorf part of the boss fight is actually, funnily enough, similar to parts of the game where you have to wrangle goats, because Link in this game starts as a farmhand. And there's a chance early in the game of like a goat escaping from the ranch, and you have to like grab it and wrangle it by its horns as it tries to run past you.
It's the part of the game I remember most vividly, because I've attempted to start Twilight Princess multiple times. I've never finished it.
Oh, big criticism of Twilight Princess is that the tutorial is so long. And it's so long.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
One of the few games in the series to actually have like 3 sword upgrades, I think. Because a lot of the times you just go from like... Okay, now like technically, yes, there are like upgrades you can get past the second sword you get in a lot of the time, but they're like very optional. Twilight Princess has 3 mandatory sword upgrades that you just get by progression. You start with a wooden one, and then you get an iron one at some point after the tutorial is over. And then you get the Master Sword later on, which of course, like, each one does progressively more damage. I really love the boss fight. And it does mix in mechanics from before. Like, you've done a decent amount of horseback riding at this point, unless you're just a lazy bitch and decided to teleport everywhere, but hey, whatever.
Yeah, like me.
You barely got past the beginning.
Yeah. No, I was more referring to myself as lazy bitch.
Oh, okay. Well, I can't contest that. Like, you've done a lot of horseback riding at this point. You've not done a lot of horseback archery, but that's fine. Zelda's the one doing the shooting.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say, no time to learn, like, the present.
Zelda's like, here, take this. And like, Zelda. What do you? I don't know how to do this. I believe in you. What do you mean you believe?
Yeah, unlike Ocarina of Time, which had like a whole horseback archery minigame, I am pretty sure Twilight Princess doesn't have that. I don't remember it, at least.
You would know better than me.
And then the sword fight with Ganondorf, as I've said, is similar to fighting the Dark Knights throughout the game. And I like this boss fight with the final bit, the sword fight with him as well, because it's really good. Now, in all these boss fights with Ganondorf, you can be a little freak and distract him with a butterfly net or a fishing rod, and yes, that works in all of them.
I will defeat you with a fishing rod. What?
Yeah, he's just staring at you. He doesn't know what to do.
Yeah, and then you fucking stab his eyes out.
Yeah, and you can do that in Twilight Princess, but then, like, when you put the fishing rod away, he has several, like, sword attack animations, but my favorite one in this one is when he just walks up and fucking backhands you. There's a significant moment in Wind Waker where he also backhands you, but that's in a cutscene.
Bold of you to assume I want to go fishing right now.
I'm the demon thief / murderer. I'm only here to thieve and kill.
And not fish.
Are we stealing the fish?
I don't know.
Men fear me, women fear me, fish fear me, but I am not a fisherman.
Ganondorf also like fully does die in Twilight Princess. He's about to not die, even with being stabbed in the chest by the Master Sword. But then like a weird, confusing, esoteric thing happens, and he dies anyway.
Hmm.
I'm not going to explain the weird, confusing, esoteric thing until the Twilight Princess video, so just like hold on to your ass for that. We got severely off the original topic, but that's because it didn't last me as long as I expected it to.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've recorded long enough.
It is past the
I don't
2-hour
know.
mark. I think we're good.
Oh,
If you
you
want,
me.
if you want to be done, or if you have anything else to say.
I'd like to save everything else I have to say for the future.
All right, then. Yeah, no, Peter.
Ganondorf when he farts.
I hate you both.